much for that introduction. And my role here is just to introduce you to this session this morning and give you a sense about the trials and tribulations that fishery managers deliberate about when they think about habitat and its importance to fisheries. So what I want to do is just reflect on that thought for a brief bit, talk to you about the Joint Strategic Plan, which is, of course, the Bible by which all of us operate under with coordinated fisheries management, and then talk to you about how the environmental principles offer the Council of Lake Committees and the Lake Committees an opportunity to provide advice to those people who are actually out there doing the work and regulating habitat. So, first of all, a few fundamental truths from fishery managers' perspectives about fish and fish habitat. One is that managers recognize that good habitat is in fact very important for sustaining fish stocks and all of the benefits that come from them. Also, it's important to recognize that fishery managers do not directly regulate habitat. That's purview of many other agencies or groups. And also then managers are faced with a conundrum, and that is how do fishery managers influence decisions about habitat to benefit fish populations. So in the past, what's happened is that the lake committees have adopted documents called environmental objectives, and those are in place for Lakes Erie and Michigan and Huron, but not for Superior and Ontario. The Great Lakes Fishery Commission produces strategic visions every 10 years, and in its most recent vision, it also encouraged that development of those environmental objectives proceed for all 5 lakes. However, there's also been a realization that what happens with these environmental objectives, well-meaning as they are, is that they tend to sit there on the bookshelf in the library and collect dust. So that's the fundamental problem. CLC said, wait a minute, let's go back to the Joint Strategic Plan and really think about what that says. So the Joint Strategic Plan has 4 really important strategic principles here. Operation by consensus, that there's mutual accountability, sharing of information, and most importantly here for today, ecosystem-based management. And in particular, the Joint Strategic Plan says that when the lake committees are considering environmental issues, they should identify those issues that may impede achievement of their fish community objectives, and then work within governmental initiatives that provide opportunities to achieve progress toward those fish community objectives. So that idea of working within governmental initiatives could happen at the federal, state or provincial, or the local levels as examples. Furthermore, the Joint Strategic Plan says that the lake committees should coordinate with the LAMP process and the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement so that the lake committees can develop joint proposals that focus on those specific environmental needs relative to their fish community objectives. Part of that process then allows for funders to understand the importance of those priorities relative to their projects. Funding opportunities could happen from sources such as the Great Lakes Fishery Trust, the Great Lakes Fishery and Ecosystem Restoration Program administered by the Army Corps of Engineers, the Great Lakes Fish and Wildlife Restoration Act, the Canada-Ontario Agreement, and the Upper Great Lakes and Upper Midwest and Great Lakes Landscape Conservation Cooperative. So with that in mind, the CLC then went to work deliberating, thinking, reflecting. They did that over a period of a couple of years, including drafting some language. Some of the key people on that group were Jeff Tyson from the Lake Erie Committee and Steve Hewitt from Lake Superior Committee, and who else was on it? I think Vic Santucci from the Lake Michigan Committee. So they did that. They drafted some documents. The CLC revised those over 2 years. I just want to touch on some important concepts in that document here. You're going to hear more about that over the next few talks. The idea that hypothesis testing is really important because we don't know a lot, And that leads to adaptive management. And Jim Bowes talked about adaptive management. He's going to talk more about that this afternoon. The idea that collaboration is important, both collaboration within lake committees, but also between lake committees and these other groups. Cumulative impact is important. Although projects happen very much on a local scale, thinking in the broad picture, what are we doing in a larger context is greatly important. Functional habitats, Brian Locke's going to talk more about what those mean in a little bit, and also priority management areas. Where are the priorities that we need to focus on for habitat? Recognizing too that there's value in fisheries, and we need to, as a community, communicate that to our collaborators and be able to act on manageable stresses. The result of all of that deliberation then was the document Steve mentioned, the environmental principles for sustainable fisheries in the Great Lakes Basin. That was adopted earlier this month by the Council, and it's available on the Council of Lake Committee's homepage at the Fishery Commission website. So let's just give you a sense about what this means. And so in a nutshell, the principles say sustainable fisheries can occur across the basin if functional habitats are protected or improved in each lake. That happens through a process that's systematic, hypothesis testing, it's adaptive, it's cumulative in its impact, and it's collaborative, that accommodates fishery management values into decision makings to act on those manageable stresses that are out there. And the idea too that I want to introduce is that it's important to protect the existing high quality functioning habitat. Let's not lose sight of that, but then also to restore and enhance other elements of the principle of habitat. So I want to spend now the last few minutes thinking about how does this document perhaps lead us to advice to those groups that the document calls applicators. So it's important to recognize that at the Council of Lake Committees level, the environmental principles are a basin-wide construct, and that works really well in the context of Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement basin-wide planning. At the same time, the lake committees now need to go into detail and develop those principles specifically within each lake, and that means they need to wrestle with what are the key functional habitats for fish production, what are the environmental issues that impede achievement of fish community objectives, and then where are the priority management areas to address those impediments and communicate them forward. I think what this means is that the lake committees are going to task their technical committees to do a lot of that work with lake committee oversight, review, and adoption. The goal here is a short list of priorities where progress can be made in the next 5 years that aligns well with LAMP reporting cycles and also fish community objective reporting. And the CLC further desires that this process be completed within lake committees by the fall of 2017. Specifically then, this gives lake committees the opportunity to provide advice to applicators through things like the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement-based lake partnerships, but also through individual jurisdiction coastal zone programs, through the Aquatic Connectivity Collaborative. It allows lake committees to provide advice about funding priorities and also to work directly with municipalities and landowners. So that's my quick overview this morning. You're going to hear a lot more about this over the coming morning and afternoon sessions, and I encourage you to reflect on this as you think more about how the lake committees see this moving forward. So with that, Mr. Chair, thank you.